All right, good afternoon. There is so much to talk about today. The budget is this week. It's actually on my birthday on the 22nd. And there is a lot of talk about there being uh, big reforms to how ISIS work. So I want to spend this video, or this live, I should say, going through what we know already. And then I'll also touch on some other bits and pieces of what we think will be coming out in the budget, in the autumn statement, I should say, on I think is it Wednesday? On Wednesday this week. So, look, caveat first and foremost, it is likely that some of this stuff doesn't happen, but this is what is being reported in the media right now. And if you follow things like the autumn statement or any of the statements for that matter, you'll know that oftentimes what they will do is they will signpost, they will leak certain things to get some positive sort of traction out there before the actual day of the announcement. So this is what we currently know about ISIS. Now, we've not seen any reforms in ISIS now for, I think, about 13 years, if not a little bit longer. I think the last reform, when was the last reform? Maybe I'm thinking 2007, I think was the last time we had a reform to the ISIS. So this would be a big thing. And from what's being reported right now, there's a simplification that will be basically happening. So at the moment with an ISA, what happens is you have a cash ISA, you have a stocks and shares ISA, you have a lifetime ISA. Then under that, you also have your junior ISAs, you have your innovative finance ISAs, and there is one more which I've left out. There are about 5 or 6 altogether that you can choose from. This reform potentially this week means that we're going to see a simplification of all of that. And what that means is that you should be able to hold your stocks and shares ISAs and your cash ISAs in one account. So remember, at the moment, under your ISA allowance, which is £20,000, you can either have it as a cash ISA or a stocks and shares ISA, and you have to open those two accounts separately. The same thing applies if you're going for a lifetime ISA. You can either have a cash one or a stocks and shares one. Same thing for junior ISAs. You can have a cash junior ISA or a stocks and shares junior ISA. This simplification will basically mean that you will just have one account and you allocate money either to cash or to stocks and shares, bringing it and making it a lot easier for people to navigate. The one that's really exciting me, though, from what might come out this Wednesday, is the fact that there's a lot of talk now of there being an increase to the actual ISA allowance. For those of you who have obviously been following the channel, you know ISAs, you've been using them, you've been saving. The allowance at this point in time is £20,000 per tax year, and the tax year runs from April the 6th to April the 5th each year. There is a rumor that we're going to see an increase of the ISA allowance from 20,000 to £30,000. Now, from what I'm hearing, there are some caveats to this actually happening. So the first caveat is this. It is likely that the increase from 20 to 30, so the extra £10,000, will only be applicable for stocks and shares ISAs. And there's talk about there also being a possible allowance within that £10,000 where you will get £5,000, which will be specifically dedicated to investments in UK companies. Now, this is actually quite clever when you begin to have a look at some of the recent news that's been out. I don't know if you're using people like eToro or Trading 212. A lot of the platforms emailed out about 2 months ago to say that they are now charging stamp duty on UK listed companies. And this is very, very clever from Jeremy Hunt, because if he does make it so that you've got an additional £5,000, that £10,000 increase, which will only be dedicated to investing in UK companies specifically, he's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Number one, he's able to get more money flooding into the UK economy and UK companies, which would be a good thing, to be honest, because let's be frank. A lot of attention is focused on the US and other global areas, and we don't necessarily pay a lot of attention to UK listed companies specifically. So this will be good for UK listed companies. So that's one thing that he will do that will be beneficial. The other thing that he would do which would be beneficial is that because there will be stamp duty charged on the transaction, it also increases the tax take potentially. So that's another thing that they're looking at changing when it comes to ISAs potentially this week. Now, this is the big one. A lot of you who are first time buyers who follow me here are first time buyers. The lifetime um, ISA. Now, with the lifetime ISA at this point in time, you've got to be under the age of 40 to open it, and you cannot continue to contribute into the lifetime ISA after 50. Okay, so if you open it at you're 25, you've got 25 years to pay money into this thing, right? And the allowance is £4,000, right? That's the current rule with lifetime ISAs. What they're potentially looking at doing here is reforming that slightly in a number of ways. First and foremost, increase the age by which you're not allowed to pay into it anymore. So taking it from 50 potentially up to 55. So it gives you more time to be able to contribute into it. The second thing is that with lifetime ISAs, if you are in, a place like London, for example, the limit on the lifetime ISA has always been around about, in terms of the property purchase, has been about £450,000. With property price increases right now, it has been calculated that limit needs to jump from 450 to 560,000. So people who are in London, in the southeast, where it's pretty expensive, that might come in this week, which would be welcome news. But there's also something else when it comes to the lifetime ISA, and this is something that I've spoken about on the channel as well. So currently, if you don't use your lifetime ISA for either purchasing a home or using it for pension purposes to provide you an income when you get to retirement, currently you have to pay a penalty of 25% to the government. And what that basically means is that if you've invested money into stocks and shares ISA, into a lifetime ISA, whether that be cash or stocks and shares, potentially when you draw that money out, you've got to pay 25% of the account balance, not the amount that you paid in, to the government. So you may have put £4,000 in there, maxed out this year's limit. If you didn't use it for that purpose, and let's just say the money had grown to £4,500, you wouldn't pay 25% on the £4,000 that you've basically paid in, essentially giving back the bonus that the government would give you. No, you have to pay 25% on the £4,500 that is now the new account balance. And what that meant was that meant that people would have a 6.25% penalty because you're having to pay the account balance. Now, it's potentially being rumored that the penalty for the lifetime ISA is going to be reduced from 25 to 20%, and that would get rid of the 6.25% penalty. So that additional bit that you'll be paying based on the account balance. That would be a really, really big one, because I think a lot of people have got caught up with the hype that has existed around lifetime ISAs for good reason. I mean, I'll admit it right now. It was one that I picked up very, very late as being a downside, a con to using lifetime ISAs. So this is going to be very, very much welcomed if this actually happens. So from what we can see at the moment, there are sweeping changes, really, really big reforms to ISAs coming this week. I personally hope that we're able to tick the box on all of these, because I think an increase to the annual allowance is going to be great. Fantastic. Simplifying ISAs, fantastic. Changing the lifetime ISA so that, you're not being penalized, and increasing the maximum amount for properties that you can purchase using a lifetime ISA. That is so needed right now. It has been needed for a very long time, but they've got round to it. I think it's better late than never, right? So I think all of these things are good. Now, there is one contentious thing that we've not heard anything about just yet. And I was tagged in something this morning from the FT. We spoke about the fact that HMRC were trying to tax fractional shares within an ISA. We hope that we're going to hear something about that in the autumn statement, some clarification. So if you remember in the video that I did, I got a lot of backlash over it. People were saying that I was just hyping up and, being clickbaity, and I wasn't. This was just from conversations that I had from people. I've got a friend at the FT, and they picked up and ran the story the day after I ran it. This is something that they are seriously thinking about. And if you're using people like Free Trade or Trading 212, particularly Free Trade, you would have been asked to write to the Treasury by November 13th to say that you wanted clarification, because this is what the providers are really pushing for. They need clarification. This is all based off this spurious piece of text from 1988 that doesn't specify fractional shares as an allowable investment in ISAs, even though fractional shares didn't actually exist in 1988. So they were asking for clarification in this autumn statement. Whether we will get it, I don't know. I was tagged this morning by the FT, by my contact at the FT, to say that it might be something that will give clarity over fractional shares. And I was led to believe it would be good news. Now, FT have more reliable sources than I do. So fingers crossed that also comes in, because that in itself is going to allay a lot of worry that a lot of first-time investors have had. And I think it undermines this whole idea of trying to simplify ISAs in the first place. So I think it will be very, very, very much welcomed. And hopefully this is something that we'll get clarity on this week. Other things that might be changing this week, just from what I've been reading, possible reduction to inheritance tax. There might be a reduction of the 40% tax bracket that applies to any inheritances that you might receive or that people might be looking to leave to beneficiaries. Living wage might be going up to over £11 from £10.42. This will kick in and be applicable to anyone who's over the age of 23. There is potentially going to be an increase to fuel duty. This will be the first increase in 13 years. It's not going to be popular if he does this, but let's face it, the government needs to increase tax take at the moment. So I guess everything's on the table, right? So that's a potential increase. There's also potentially going to be another increase to alcohol duty, taking it up to 8.9%. So the alcohol is going to cost a little bit more. That pint of beer is going to cost a little bit more down the pub. What else is there? They're talking possible tax cuts for business. I don't think that we're going to see this in the personal domain for individuals, but I think for businesses it is going to be needed. And if you start looking at the economic outlook for the country, I think it is going to be very much welcomed if they do. So that's what we know. That's what we think is going to come out this week on the 22nd, on my birthday. Hopefully it's going to be good news, because it will be gifts for everyone. But I will be doing a live stream on the 22nd. So just stay tuned, and I'll give my thoughts as things are announced and try and provide some analysis of what is announced on the day. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Listen, do me a favor. If you did get value from this, please make sure you smash the like button. There are 60 odd people on here at the moment. We've only got 9 likes. It just means that other people who may be searching for what might happen to ISIS on Thursday or Wednesday this week, I've lost track of my days, Wednesday or Thursday this week, will also be recommended this video by the YouTube algorithm. It's something that's really, really small, but it really, really helps the channel. And I appreciate you. We're over 46,000 subscribers at the moment. So thank you to everyone who has joined recently. Welcome. But guys, enjoy the rest of your day. I will catch you later on. Cheers.